When you push your rifle's performance to the extremes, bad things can happen. Minor things like clickers, all the way up to huge pressure issues, case head separations, and worse. In this video, we're going to get into the factors related to the shell casing, the reloading process, and your rifle's chamber that all have to come together with perfection to ensure your ammunition functions properly and is safe. Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. If you've been reloading for a while and if you've been shooting for a while, you've probably encountered issues with high performance loads, right? Now in the industry, cartridges like 6.5 PRC, for example, are really pushing the performance of the rifle and the ammunition to higher levels. And when you push things to higher levels, like us reloaders have been doing for a long time, you can run into some serious issues, right? You can run into minor issues like clickers, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, or things can get progressively crazier, including an action blowing up, or case head separations, or even just extreme pressure signs, difficult extraction, all sorts of issues, right? In this video, I really want to get into what those phenomena are and talk about this correctness formula of the correct brass, the correct rifle chamber, and the correct sizer die dimensions that can bring all of this together and help to avoid any of those problems and elevate the performance threshold that you can push things to. We've got some pretty extreme examples to talk about. Let's start by talking about the clicker, right? The clicker happens when you're going to extract a round, the bullet handle goes up, the extraction cam is starting to work here, you're going to push up, feel some resistance, and then all of a sudden things give when the case pops out of the chamber and you get that clicking sound when the bolt goes to the top of the extraction cam feature, whatever it is on your specific action. That's what a clicker is. And so when does it happen? It happens when the base of the case is oversized compared to the chamber and when there's an interference fit, right? And what can cause this? This is caused by potentially a number of things. It could be that the brass is too weak. It could be that the chamber dimensions for your rifle are incorrect. It could be the incorrect brass dimensions. It could be bad reloading process, right? So let's get into some of these factors. Let's talk about specifications, right? SAMI exists to bring the firearms industry together with standards so that we can have interoperability with ammunition and rifles, and so that reloaders can know what to do to make sure that their ammunition is within the proper specifications, right? And a SAMI chart for each cartridge has a couple key sections. At the top, you've got the cartridge dimensions, right? It's mostly centered around the shell casing, but it also gives things like the cartridge overall length, that overall length of the bullet. It's going to give you the bullet diameter and so on and so forth, right? So when you're making shell casings, you need to make sure that the final result is very close to SAMI specifications. For instance, with headspace, it's this particular value, and that's sort of like the max value, and then it can also be undersized by a certain amount, right? Like headspace can be undersized by 7/1000ths of an inch for .308 Winchester, for instance. So those tolerances are really important. And at the bottom of the SAMI chart, you have the chamber dimensions, right? When I'm chambering a rifle, like this full custom bat rifle here, I'm looking at the SAMI chart to understand, okay, not only what gunsmithing processes am I going to work through to achieve the proper result, but also what do I need to hit, right, for headspace. And after I chamber the rifle, when I'm QCing things, I use a pin gauge at the back of the chamber to make sure that that chamber is not oversized. And that's very specifically because if your reamer is off center, the back of the chamber is going to be oversized. That's just all there is to it, right? And that's something that you want to avoid because that's a key factor in this whole equation of high performance and clickers and interoperability and proper functioning. So that's a couple parts of the equation. Then there's the sizer die, right? This is the M series die from Area 419. And when they designed the M series die, they worked very specifically with folks like Alpha Munitions to understand the sizing process in super detail, right? And to understand the factors at play and to get really good insights in order to optimize that chamber geometry. So you're going to take something like the chamber geometry from the SAMI print and apply certain offsets. When I took Gordy's rifle building class, he talks about building custom dies for bench rest guns. So it's the same kind of thought process. You're going to take your headspace, you're going to offset it a certain amount. You're going to take your shoulder diameter or your base diameter and apply certain offsets so that basically you're going to squeeze the brass down under where it needs to be and allow it to spring back very slightly. That could be as little as 2/10,000ths of an inch at the base, right? Or it could be a little bit more at the neck area. The whole point is that sizer die chamber is different than the rifle's chamber to achieve the optimal case resizing result, which is going to be SAMI specifications for pretty much everything but headspace. The M series die is kind of unique in that you can actually dial the shoulder bump or the headspace value to 1,000th, because you might want to, optimize that for your rifle. You might want to bump the shoulder 2/1000ths back from where your chamber actually sits, right? That kind of thing. So this is another key part of the whole equation. In talking with Area 409, there's a lot of dies out there with oversize base sizing features, right, in the die sizer chamber. And a lot of production rifles have oversize backs of the chamber, right? That 0.2 line from the breech face where you take your critical dimension. It could be 0.4714, for instance, for 308 Winchester. If it's beyond that, if it's larger than that, some factory rifles could be 2/1000ths of an inch over than that. On the one hand, that provides you more headroom for improperly sized brass, for brass with case head expansion and so on and so forth. On the other hand, it's oversized and that's out of spec, right? So then you're going to have an interoperability problem with your fired brass from that rifle and other rifles. And you might have plastic deformation for the brass, and that can permanently ruin the brass, right? So there's a lot of issues when you don't have the right sizer die, you don't have the right brass, and you don't have the correct dimensions in your rifle's chamber. So Alpha Munitions has a special technology called OCD, Optimized Case Head Technology. And this is proprietary process and metallurgy where they're able to increase the durability and strength of the brass, specifically at the case head. And when Bruce, Tom, and I were doing our 308 high pressure experiment, that was the experiment that I built this rifle for and we shot together, we saw ridiculous results, which I'll go through in a minute. No problems with the primer pocket, even at 100,000 PSI, which you should never try. This technology is real, and this technology addresses some very real issues when we're talking about these high performance, high pressure scenarios. So it's about having the correct dimensions for the brass, right? Per that SAMI diagram. It's about having consistent dimensions, right? The correct dimensions, that's being accurate. You're at the value you should be at. The consistent dimensions is about precision. How repeatable is the result? How consistent is case neck thickness from case to case? How consistent is base diameter from case to case? That's precision, and Alpha has invested in ridiculously expensive and amazing equipment to inspect every single case that comes off the line. It's ridiculous. That combined with the OCD technology means that this Alpha Munitions brass really is something special. Okay, so bringing together the reloading process, you definitely need the proper equipment and tools. I talked about sizer dies and how if you have an out-of-spec sizer die, that can contribute to the artificial pressure signs that you might see, real deformation of the brass that could render it inoperable with certain rifles and could cause you definitely extraction issues and stiff bolt lift and all that kind of stuff. Not only do you need the right equipment, you need to set it up correctly. So you need to have the correct sizer die set up with the correct shoulder bump. Also annealing. Annealing can help with consistent shoulder bump. It can help extend the life of the cases, and it's yet another aspect of achieving this repeatable result within the correctness formula so that you can push performance to high levels and be able to do that consistently, firing after firing after firing. That ultimately is, I think, what most competitors are after, like a PRS shooter. I want to get to the right result. I want to be able to reuse my brass, and I want to be able to depend on the reliability and the precision, the accuracy of that ammunition from firing to firing to firing. It's really important even from an economic standpoint with the amount of rounds these guys are shooting. Okay, so I want to share really quickly some results that we had with our 308 high pressure project. I got together with Bruce Tom, the owner of Bat Machine. We took this rifle, which I chambered, and we did this. We took 308 Winchester, and we started with a max load. We kept incrementing our charge weight, and we ended up kind of in the middle of the 300 Win Mag level of performance in terms of velocity for a Berger 215 grain projectile. We went up to 30-06. We went beyond 30-06, and we got into the 300 Win Mag territory. We did not go up to 300 Win Mag max. There is a limit to the case capacity, and also without a proper enclosure, Bruce felt like we could potentially get there, but it might get into this questionable safety domain, right? It's not worth the risk, and you should not try this at home. You should not do this. Bruce has a ton of experience. We worked directly with Alpha. We really looked hard and closely at the problem domain and proceeded cautiously looking for any kind of signs. What was amazing was, all the way until the end, what did we see with primers? Slight flattening and just a little bit of cratering around where the fire pin struck the primer. We did not see primer piercing, and we didn't have primers falling out, even at over 100,000 PSI. What happens is, with inferior brass, is the case head is only so strong, right? When you get up to 80,000 PSI, it'll actually expand because of the pressure and release the primer, and that's where primers blow out. Bruce actually saw that in his own testing with other brass, right? This OCD enables you to push it further. We also had the correct chamber dimensions, and what we're about to talk about is the reloading process and seeing how repeatable this is. So one thing I'll mention here is this yellow bar that you see on there is what Bruce and I figured was the practical, usable limit for this load, right? If we're going to shoot this, we're going to reload this, this is kind of where we decided to stop. We're still beyond 30-06 performance here, and we're kind of, up approaching that starting load for 300 Win Mag territory with this heavy of a projectile. So we shot the ammunition, we shot it at long range. I actually had a first round impact at 1,390 yards. You're going to want to watch that video to see the whole process. Okay, so I want to go over the reloading demo. We're going to reload some ammo and then go out and shoot it. We've got the competition primer seeder from Primal Rights, Auto Trickler V4, our previously fired cases from the 308 high pressure experiment. Primers, we did switch to CCIs. That probably was unnecessary because it looked fairly equivalent, the Federals to the CCIs. I know there's a difference in cup design and thickness and hardness potentially there. Berger 215s. We've got Varget in the Auto Trickler V4. We're going to be trickling to plus or minus about 1 kernel, right? So that's how we're able to get those really tight SDs, right? That and great components. M-series sizing die on the Area 4190 press. So I'm going to get this sizing die out of the box, and then we'll load a few cartridges and go out and shoot those. Okay, so we got our M-series die set up with the included shell holder on the Zero press. This is pretty much as simple as lowering the die until it hits and you get your appropriate amount of compression, tighten the lock ring, and then adjust the headspace accordingly. Area 409 suggests you start at maybe backing off by about 0.04 of an inch and then kind of fine tune to get the appropriate shoulder bump. I would recommend for a precision rifle, 1 to 2 thousandths shoulder bump is typically going to be where you're going to want to be, but you're going to want to chamber your ammunition and just make sure they don't have bolt drag, and also make sure that you don't have excessive shoulder bump to prevent some of those issues that we talked about. So I've lubed the cases, and we're going to go ahead and size these and deprime them. And sometimes you're going to feel a little bit more sizing with this die because the base of the die is sized appropriately for the brass. Okay, didn't have that one quite pushed in. It looks like it snapped into place. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and prime these cases and charge them with powder. Okay, so we've got priming and charging complete. Now let's go ahead and do our bullet seating. Now with this particular load, we're seated long and we've got a compressed load as well, as you would expect with such a kind of pushing the limits kind of scenario. But they are able to be mag fed. So this ammo is something that actually shot really well when we went up to the ridgeline and did some shooting. Okay, so let's go ahead and cycle these through the rifle and see how they're going to shoot. Let's do this. Zero effort to chamber. Love it. Nice. Well, that was a successful reloading and shooting experiment. We had way over SAMI pressure for the first loading, and we replicated that again with another identical way over SAMI loads. This is 4 grains over max. So really high performance. As you saw when I was shooting, very easy to chamber the round and very easy to extract the round, routine. I just took this OD micrometer and mic'd the base of the case, and we were at under 470, right? So what is the takeaway at the end of the day? Here we had the proper chamber dimensions, a nice tight chamber. We have the proper resizer die dimensions, right? Just right to size the base of that case when needed. And then we have brass that's incredibly strong and has optimal metallurgy, optimal precision and accuracy for all of the key dimensions and properties. And when you have that equation line up like that, you can do things that you just can't do with out of spec dies, out of spec chambers, and inferior brass. It just enables you to do more, right? So this is truly a case where premium components, premium firearm all work together to do something magical, right? To be able to push the performance to super high levels and have optimal functioning at the same time. And again, that's what we're all really after. Don't forget to check out the 308 high pressure video, and we've got more content coming up that's going to go into some of these factors and do cool high performance experiments like this in the future. What I'd like to know is, what do you think about what I showed here? What have your experiences been in terms of clickers or pressure problems, right? Share your experiences by dropping a comment and we'll start that discussion. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. If you're interested in custom rifles like what we build here on the channel or gunsmithing services, you're going to want to go to rifles.ultimatereloader.com and get on the wait list. If you want to learn lucrative gunsmithing like what I show here on the channel, including building custom rifles and Cerakote plus a whole bunch more, you're going to want to check out the Colorado School of Trades, schooloftrades.edu. Thanks again for watching.